So this is going to be a series on airbrushing, your tools, what you need to know about airbrushing, accessories, costs, all that other stuff. It's going to be a many-part video thing, I'll tell you that right now. So the first part of this video is going to be going over your tools, what the expenses are, what it'll cost you, so forth. First of all, your airbrush. Of course, you can buy a cheap airbrush. You can get them relatively cheap, $30. But the thing is that those airbrushes are not good quality. They won't last as long as a nice airbrush. Now, of course, if you do take care of them, they'll last much longer. But they generally don't have the nice option of being able to regulate all different sorts of things in the airbrush, including pressure, how much, how much you really want in the airbrush, including when you're doing dapples and so forth. It'll also, with different size needles, there's different sizes according to what you want your width to be of your spray. Some needles will make smaller little spots, stuff like what Briar does with their dapples, so forth. And you also can get a wide spray, so if you want to cover something large, depending on your needle size, of course. You can also get some with bottles. This is one that comes with it. You can also get the standard cup, which is something like this. There's many different brands. This is a Badger. I've had this one for probably forever. It was my first ever airbrush that we currently had, and at the time it was very expensive. And of course, airbrushes do occasionally get damaged. This one had a fall a while ago, and it unsoldered itself, and I haven't been able to have time to resolder it back into the joint. This is the joint that connects to the air pressure, which gives you air, and of course, if you don't have that, you don't have any pressure. So that's kind of just hanging out just because it's broken. But the price range on that when we first bought it was about, I think, $200 something. It's worth more now because Badger is a pretty good, well-known company. They make very well good quality stuff, good airbrushes. This is a Poshy, if that's how you say it. It's another kind of a in-between brand. This one we bought at the local art store. It was $130. It came with this. It came with one of these. No, actually two of these. It came with two of these bottles, one lid. Came with two of these. Now these, of course, these are all, so this goes in there like that, and of course you can put more paint in there. I actually like to use this as more of a cleaning than anything. The reason why is because I like to put the little thing on this, which goes in the same spot here. So it goes like that. And then when I put in my airbrush paints, of course I can spray, and then when I want to make it a little bit darker, I just add more in there of the darker color, and then I spray again, so I don't have to keep, dumping out the paint that's in here, because with this you have to mix in a little bit more paint, because if there's not enough paint, it won't feed. You have to have a certain level of paint in here for this to pull up paint into the tube and then into the airbrush. So this I just kind of use now for feeding cleaning supplies into the airbrush after you're done using it. Of course, there's different tips according to width and size as well. You just got to follow your manual, and usually it'll explain everything. Another big expense is your compressor. I don't like using the little cans of air just because they are very expensive. I could see if you were on the go and you didn't have any like power supply for a compressor, or if you just don't want to deal with the noise. The two different type of compressors are oil and air. Oil are a little bit harder to maintain. Of course, you have to change the oil in the air compressor. I think it's every couple of years. I don't know. It varies on each machine. They're a little bit less quieter, but of course, there's more maintenance on them. A air compressor, which is that one there. This one here was, let's see, $98 on sale or something. It can go all the way up to over 100 PSI. which is pounds per square inch. Usually we want our airbrush between 20 and 30 psi for spraying, but you can lower it depending on how much paint you want flowing out, and also other things depending on size and what you're doing. So let's turn back here now. Okay. So a couple of other things you need to take into consideration, let's pull this up, is what you plan on doing. If you're going to be spraying a lot of horses, and you have a lot of things in mind, like let's say you want to go for commission work, but you're not sure quite yet, go ahead and get a cheaper airbrush. Don't spend a lot of money the first time. It's best to start with something cheap, see if you like it. And of course, if you like it and you seem to work well with your airbrush, go ahead and start saving and get something a little bit more expensive. Make sure you clean your airbrush regularly after every single use. I always take everything apart in the airbrush from where the paint is drawn in, which would be here. So this whole cavity from here to here gets filled with paint. So I take all of this out, I clean the needle, I wipe a little alcohol on it, make sure all the paint's gone, clean it out real good and so forth, so all the paint is gone and you know that you're not going to have any paint residue in there. Then once a month, or maybe depending on how much I use it, if I'm using it quite a bit, I'll do what I call a ultimate clean, which is where I let all the stuff soak. So I'll take the needle out, I'll take everything out, and I'll let it soak in a alcohol or turpentine based product to remove any of the leftover little paint particles I may have missed. Make sure it's clean and so forth. Then you want to let it dry, so leave all the parts on a paper towel, shake all the water out. You can even use a little blower and just blow the water out. Once everything is blown dry or 100% dry, go ahead and put it back together and then put it back into your case and keep it clean so it's out of the way. Now, of course, there is different types of airbrushes. There's many different types of airbrushes, according to what you want to do, and what your overall goal is for airbrushing. There's many different types of paint. What I would recommend is when you are picking out paints for your airbrush, of course you can spend money and go and buy paints from the art store, which are $6, $7 a piece for maybe a bottle like that big. They're not really worth it. What I do is I take, I've got another video that explains this, but I take these and I mix paint, so check that video out. It is one of the newer ones, and it's a very good video on learning how to mix acrylic paints. It does take a little bit time to figure out your consistency, what you like to use and how much you want of paint in there compared to how much water, so forth, and then how you like to spray. So if you like to spray farther away, you want maybe something a little bit thinner. If you like to spray closer, then you may want something a little bit thicker so that it doesn't run. And then of course there's drying time and all that. So working with airbrushes can be relatively rewarding, but it can also be very tricky, just because airbrushes are harder to fix damage-wise to the model. So let's say that you got this beautiful horse and you got all its colors layered out, right? And you decide you wanted to go a little bit darker, but you accidentally went too dark. It's really hard to correct if you haven't sprayed with your matte finish. What you would have to do is immediately run over the sink and wash it off, because if it has time to dry, you're going to have a hard time getting it off. Of course, acrylic paints are water-based, so they do come off a little bit easier, but still, they are a little bit harder to get off depending. So with every single layer that you do of your airbrush, you need to spray with your matte finish. It's very important. Just in case you do make a mistake, you can run over and wash. But you need to make sure that you give your horse enough time to dry, because if you don't give him enough time and then you spray and then you go over to the sink, you will ruin the horse. You will ruin the paint underneath, you will ruin all of it. So you need to make sure that you give your horse at least 30 minutes in between each coat to dry. Now this does depend on temperature, weather, everything under the sun. If you don't know for sure, give them a full hour. Give them a day if you have to. Just don't rush it. It's not good to rush getting it done with. Just take your time and it will look so much better in the end. So yeah, but you know, just depending on what you want to do with your airbrush, it does make a big difference on things. So yeah, so that's it, guys. There will be more videos on airbrushing soon. I will have tutorials on airbrushing dapples, how to pick up different colors and stuff like that. So make sure you stay tuned.